This is Long Way to the Top, and I'm your host, Shane Bryan. In the words of the immortal AC/DC, it is harder than it looks. These interviews will give you a glimpse into the lives of the artists that we've sung along with, danced and rocked out to. Some go deep into their past and others celebrate their recent releases. But all of them show that regardless of who you are, it's always a long way to the top. Welcome to Long Way to the Top. I'm Shane Bryan. Now, Blondie are heading down under for Pandemonium Rocks Festival in April. One of the biggest lineups of international rock artists seen in Australia in a long time. Alice Cooper, Placebo, Deep Purple and Blondie. Joining us today on the show is the current bass player for Blondie, a man who was in the mother of all punk bands, the Sex Pistols. I'm talking about Glen Matlock. You're listening to Long Way to the Top. Glen Matlock, how are you?
Not so bad. How are you doing? You all right?
Fantastic. Now, look, I've just got to say that the artists that you have worked with read like a bit of a roll call of anyone who was anyone in the punk and the new wave scene. Sex Pistols, Rich Kids, which was the other band that you were in, featured artists like Midge Ure, Rusty Egan, Steve New, Mick Jones of The Clash. I mean, incredible lineup. Gary Kemp from Spandau Ballet?
Yeah, well, they've all worked with us at different stages. The thing is, they might be names, but also, you know, over the years when you work with people, they just become mates, you know. Yeah. Steve New sadly passed away and Gary Kemp stood in for him. We did a one-off Pistols reunion, but Gary Kemp is a great guy. You know, he's had a lot of success. Yeah. But he was a big Rich Kids fan. I was lucky enough to play with my all-time favourite band, The Faces, 10 or 12 years ago now. And Rod didn't do it, but Mick Hucknall did it. It was very good, you know, from Simply Red, and it was Ronnie Wood and Kenny Jones, Ian McLagan. And that was the band I used to stand in front of the mirror when I was 14, pretending I was in them. And when the last gig we did was in front of 50,000 people headlining the Fuji Festival. So that was a buzz. But when we was rehearsing for the Rich Kids thing, when Gary Kemp was doing it, he came up to me and he said, "You know what, Glenn? You don't have to say this. He's a millionaire. He's done very well with his band." He said, "Me doing this must have been what it was like for you doing The Faces." You know, and you become fans of the band and you become mates with people. And if you're kind of short of a member or stuck, you call up your mates and see who's available and who's up for doing it. And that's what happened. So, they might be names, but this is your circle of friends.
They're still mates, yeah. You kind of answered one of the questions that I was going to ask. You know, was there a band that really sort of inspired you? And I guess you're saying it was The Faces, yeah?
Oh, right. Well, it was one of the things, and it's a major thing. And that's what got me the gig when I met Steve and Paul for the first time. You know, they were short of a bass player who turned up for their fledgling band. And I said, well, I didn't say I could play it. I said, I've got bass. And they went, really? Who's your favourite band? I said, The Faces. And I went, that's ours as well. So it kind of, me doing that was like a full circle kind of thing.
Well, who was the I guess the artist that inspired you to pick up the bass in the first place?
Oh, Ronnie Lane from The Faces.
Ronnie Lane.
Yeah. But not the only one, but that was the thing. But I always dug certain bass players, you know, Entwistle and McCartney as a bass player. All James, one of my all-time favourite bass players is James Jameson. He played on all the Sam Motown stuff. You know, that's kind of cool.
So Motown, I mean, we know you from your time with punk and with new wave, but Motown was a big inspiration for you as well growing up.
Well, it was what was going on when I was growing up. You know, we had this fantastic thing called Pirate Radio, where the Kinks and the Who and the Yardbirds and the Stones and the Small Faces came through. Then there was a TV show called Ready, Steady, Go, which I don't think has ever been surpassed. That Dusty Springfield was on a lot, and she got hip to Tamla Motown, who were doing a tour in England, which was struggling, and she insisted that they had them on the programme. And on the programme, they would have playing live Smokey Robinson and Martha Reeves and the Vandellas and Stevie Wonder and Sam Cooke and all that
Yeah.
kind of thing. So you can't not be affected by that
Yeah.
kind of really. And all those songs, to me, every Motown song, they're so well crafted. The playing's
Yeah.
great, the delivery's great, but it's not like kind of political bring down the world or something, but every song's of some kind of consequence. So much so they're almost like a mini opera,
Yes.
you know.
Yes. I
And,
completely
and
understand what you mean.
that's what I kind of aspire to, and I grew up with it, and that's really influenced my songwriting. But then, you get hip to people like Bowie, and then I like people like Anthony Newley, and Krautrock like Can, and who did radioactivity? Radioactivity, Kraftwerk. So
Kraftwerk.
it's all
Kraftwerk.
in the mix.
Yes.
It's all in the mix somehow.
So,
But I'll stick with that 3.5 minute
mm,
sort of mini opera kind of song that's got some kind of consequence, and it doesn't have to be all kind of political or that. But
mm,
a little twist on the way people look at life is what makes music interesting
mm,
to
mm,
me,
mm.
and that's what I've kind of done. But that's what I do as a songwriter. But also, I seem to have, and it seems to have taken over a little bit. That's just the way it is. I'm
Yes.
not a bad bass player, people call me up, then,
Yeah.
I'm not a bad bass player, and I turn up and
Yeah.
do what I do, get on with people
Yeah.
in the right way, kind of make it work somehow. So that's why I get a call to do things like Blondie,
Yeah.
who I've really enjoyed doing. It's been a privilege to be asked and to do it. And,
Mm, mm,
I'm doing my own stuff, but I realise it is a club level kind of thing around the world. And Blondie with their massive gigs,
mm.
We did Coachella last year. Never in a million years would I thought I'd be sharing a stage with somebody getting up with us and it being Nile Rodgers. That's kind of it's not bad.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
And because Blondie were I guess the other end of the world to you in when Sex Pistols were sort of kicking off, and you then were in Rich Kids. Blondie were in America.
yeah. But hang on, there was back then there was a thing going on,
Yeah.
and because of the Pistols, and we were kind of like the hippest kids in town with the hippest kind of mentor, Malcolm McLaren, who was going backwards and forwards to New York because he had a, basically a 50s clothing business, and he would go to clothing conventions and then meet people like Sylvain, and then they take him out to a club, and he got hit to what was going on, and
Mm,
we heard about it. None of those people had made records, so nobody had heard what
mm,
these other bands sounded like, but we knew there was something that was a bit more interesting and modern
yeah.
than what was going on in London. In London, there weren't really anything. We were what was going on, and we created that as the Pistols, and then all the
Mm,
other bands came like a year afterwards. Really, we were
yes.
the forerunners of that. But I think there was almost like think about it. I used to like the Thor
Yeah.
magazines, comics, and
Yes.
every now and then he goes back to see his dad in Asgard, and there's like this rainbow bridge he walks over. I can see like some
Yeah.
comic strips, and there was like a mental rainbow bridge between London and New York
With
at the
With
time. And
Malcolm McLaren walking on it. Yeah.
well, he's probably charging people good money for tickets to walk on it now and then. But
Yeah.
yeah, there was a like collective consciousness somehow,
Yeah.
and I think it was people got fed up with the same kinds of music that didn't really mean too much to them at,
Yeah.
at the time. That was the tail end of the prog rock thing, bands like Genesis
Yeah.
and James Harvest and Jethro Tull. Although I really love Song for Jeffrey and Living in the Past, that's
Mm,
fantastic.
mm.
And then if you're in New York, I'm sure the Doobie Brothers don't make mean much to you.
No.
So kids
Yeah.
always want something of
Yes.
their own somehow.
It really was I guess coming out of that whole, progressive rock vibe. And this was really, I guess you guys sticking the middle finger up and going, hang on a second, there's something not right here. And did that flow through obviously in your songwriting? I mean, you did 10 of the 12 songs off Never Mind the Bollocks.
Um, yeah. Um, I don't know. I think the Pistols, we didn't know what we wanted to do musically. We just knew what we didn't like, so we weren't going to do that, but we was going to do it anyway, and it came out like that.
Yeah.
And it was just a great chemistry
Yes.
of wrongs, really. And everybody's kind of gone there. I always say it
Their
as
own
like a
way.
kind of a train crash. We came in it, and it was this big explosion of everything that came out, and everybody just
Yeah.
heated off in different directions afterwards.
Yeah.
You know,
Now,
there
do
are
you
lots of bands like that. We weren't the only ones.
do you mind me asking, because this is obviously a bit of a bone of contention, but the Pistols documentary came, or the telly movie came out last year, and there was an infamous scene that you disagreed with, that you weren't kicked out of Sex
Well,
Pistols.
it's bollocks. I left.
Yeah.
I wasn't getting on with them. I freely admit that. But I
Yeah.
walked. And that whole episode is just wrong. And I challenged Steve Jones about it.
Yeah.
And he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Mate, you got a shocking fucking memory." And he went through this, that, and the other. And but agree, really. I was
Yeah.
disappointed with Danny Boyle, really.
Yeah.
I
Because
had
he
some
usually puts out
meetings.
good stuff.
Pardon?
He usually puts out, good
Well,
shows.
exactly. Which was why I was pro it, and I thought it was important. Steve formed the band with Paul, but he formed the band, and he should tell his story. But
Mm. Mm.
uh, ultimately disappointed.
Uh,
But there you go. But on the other hand, somebody's actually. I put a book out a long time ago called "I Was a Teenage Sex Pistol," and somebody is now shooting like a Sky Art style documentary
yeah.
on that. So that will come out, and I'm sure the other guys will disagree with it.
Yeah.
There's no when there's more than one person involved in a project.
Yeah.
There's more than one truth. But so somebody like Danny Boyle come along, had meetings with it about it, and then he disregard you.
Yeah.
But I did see Danny Boyle after that, and he knows exactly what I think about him. Exactly what I think about him.
Look, I guess it's also too, with every band, there's going to be myths and things that will come up. You didn't like Johnny Rotten's lyrics, or you kept washing your feet. I mean, these are some of the myths that have sort of come up about it, which are kind of bizarre. But with any band,
Well,
the
and let
Beatles.
me just tell you about this fake business, right? But me and Steve shared this tiny little place where our rehearsal room was downstairs, and upstairs we had two kind of mattresses that we kept on, and there was a sink. There was no bathroom or anything like that.
Yeah.
And Steve always seemed to come in after I'd finished having a wash down. Now, luckily for him, he'd only seen me washing my feet in the washing up bowl, but he hadn't seen what I washed before that.
Thank God for all of us, hey? Well, that
Yeah.
might have been a song. You never know.
Yeah.
Just in just sort of going forward into the rich kids phase, I mean, that was a really unique period, because you've moved out of punk into more of a new wave sort of vibe. Was it a natural progression with?
Well, it just seems that, and I kind of got involved with different musicians. When you play with musicians, they've all got a different set of influences, and if they're any good, they kind of bring that to the table somehow. And you got mates who do fashion, and you got mates of photographers and graphic artists and stuff. And maybe they didn't fit the Pistols thing because that was already sewn up, but they were as interested in doing something new, and they all bring something to the table, and it comes out how it comes out.
Yeah.
I knew full well there's no point in me being the Sex Pistols Mark II because I'd already done that. And then you'd always be second division. I wanted to do something different.
Yeah.
Got Midge, who I thought was a fantastic singer.
Sensational.
And because he was doing that slick thing before, it would put the cat amongst the pigeons with the punks, which was kind of good in a way. Maybe it didn't do me so much good in the long run, but I thought we made a pretty good record. I got to work with people like Mick Ronson, and I met Ian McLagan through doing that. He played on the album, did a tour with us. And I think we were a little bit ahead of our time, and I think we was a bridgehead between punk and the new romantic thing, really.
Yeah.
I mean, what broke up the rich kids was Midge and Rusty got hit to electronic music, and it was because I turned them on to Kraftwerk.
Right.
They did a solo project with Steve Strange, and that was the birth of the new romantic movement. And
Yeah.
it kind of, Meanwhile, I went to rock and roll, and the Rich Kids thing was floundering a little bit
Mm.
because we were ahead of our time, and we weren't a punk band. And no, you got to be a punk band. Well, you don't have to be, but there's
Mm.
timing involved in these things. I then got a phone call from Iggy Pop, so I was off
Yeah.
touring the world of Iggy Pop, rocking and rolling a bit more.
Yeah. Well,
You do what you do.
you were pretty much single-handedly responsible for the new romantic movement then.
Well, not me, but if I hadn't had written into the Rich Kids album contract with EMI,
Yeah.
because I realised they had a fantastic back catalogue of stuff, and when we signed, everybody got a complete set of Beatles
Yeah.
on vinyl,
Wow.
complete set of Motown on vinyl, complete set of Creedence Clearwater stuff, a complete set of Kraftwerk, Krautrock stuff, Can and all that, but also a complete set of all the Kraftwerk albums, which
Yeah.
me and Rusty had never heard before. So I ended up shooting myself in the foot.
Wow, that's incredible. And now it's kind of funny too because Blondie. Now that you're with Blondie, Blondie was very much that mix of punk and new wave, new romantic. They really bridged that gap.
Well, I don't know if they was new romantic, but I think they did the punk maybe a bit more 60s influence thing. A song like Denis, which I think is fantastic. It's very evocative to me of some kind of swinging 60s left bank thing. In fact, I always thought it was by a French band, and I only found out recently it was by an American band.
Right.
But living in New York, things are always happening there, and
Yes.
you had the whole kind of hip hop scene developing, Grandmaster Flash and people like that.
Yeah.
And they got hip to that, and then they adapted and came out with stuff, like Rapture, and Heart of Glass, and
Incredible
that.
albums.
So, you can't rest on your laurels
No.
too much. You develop. Somebody like Bowie, and they was hanging out with Bowie.
Yeah.
And Robert Fripp played on some of their stuff and all that, and it was all part of that New York scene. So it made some kind of sense that they did. But something like Bowie, you can have success with one thing once, but if you keep doing the same old thing all the time,
Yeah.
it's a bit stale. You got to develop somehow, but also be true to yourself somehow.
But someone like Bowie, he changed, his whole persona and sound so many times, and I think.
Well, he did. He did. It's the whole thing with persona. I'm not sure about that. I mean, people say Madonna's got a whole new persona. She's got a different fucking blouse on. It's,
So Bowie just put on a different dress, really. That's what he did, yeah?
Yeah. But then Bowie put on a different dress, Yeah, I remember being in New York in the early 80s and watching Saturday Night Live, and Bowie come out in drag, doing Boys Keep Swinging, and that was fantastic. What a great off the wall kind of song, and then he does that bit at the end that all the drag artists do, when they go, kind of like a hip Danny LaRue kind of thing.
Yes, very cool, very cool. Now I have to show you, talking about comics earlier. I literally have, I don't know whether you can see that, but it's Blondie against the odds, and it is literally a comic book.
Oh, well, there you go.
How is that?
Where's me? I'm not in it.
No, you're not in it yet. No, it finishes at 2020. So yeah.
Right.
Next, you're in the next one.
All right. Okay. I'll have to go and I'll get some stickers made, and I'll go around WH Smith or what your Aussie equivalent is. And
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Now, great album that you put out last year, which was Consequences Coming. And I love the song Head on a Stick. It really takes you, I feel it takes you back to your punk days, in that sound.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's also got a bit of the Monkeys in it as well, Last Train to Clarksville. But sentiment-wise, it's. I think certain things have to be said. I'm so angry with the whole stupidity of the Brexit thing and the right-wing left with the Tories, and I just I don't. I'm not a violent man. Everything I say and write is kind of, illusory. But I think some of these people should be brought to account. And since I've written that, particularly Johnson, I feel I've been proved right, really.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Now you've got a brand new album coming out, I hear.
Well, no.
No?
I think there's a bit of misunderstanding there.
Okay.
The Consequences album is only just being physically released in
Right.
Australia, so that's kind of new. But I'm
Yes.
always knocking around some songs. But
Yeah.
it's just finding time to sit down and finish them and record them and put them out. But maybe towards the end of this year, I'll do that.
Yeah. So
But
we'll
as far as
finally.
you guys are concerned, Consequences coming
Yeah.
is new enough. And if you
Yes.
haven't heard it before, it's still new, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is, and I've got to say, listening to it, I love it. I think it's, and like you said, there's elements in the album that you go, oh yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying there. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. But and it's not just in England. It's the States. There's a whole lurch to the right, which is not doing anybody around the world much good that I can see. And I think it's untenable.
Yeah.
Stop. Have a word with yourself, everybody.
Yeah.
It's all this kind of polarizing all the time.
It is.
But
it is.
It's just such horrible discord.
Yeah. Now, I should mention the Aussie dates. You're heading to Australia in April.
Well, tell me, because I'd like to know where I'm going. Right?
Okay, so
I'm going to Australia.
you're heading to Melbourne first on April 20th.
I'm going to see my cousin Sarah.
Right.
Mount Eliza. Right, yeah.
Yeah, no worries. Sydney on April 25th at there's a new venue, which is the Sydney Olympic Park Precinct.
Right, yeah, because it was going to be down on the rocks, but it ties in with Anzac Day, which is...
Yeah, they can't do it there. Saturday, April 27th on the Gold Coast, and Sunday, April 28th, Bribie Island, which is near Brisbane. But you're not performing at that one, just Gold Coast is as far as you go.
Right, okay. Yeah. I don't know why we're not doing the last one.
I don't know either,
but also over and above that, I don't know if it's going to happen yet, but there's a little bit of talk about me staying over a little bit longer and doing a couple of just real solo dates. I do quite a good evening with Glen Matlock solo show with me and my acoustic. So maybe that
would be fantastic. And you may come down to Tasmania.
May do, yeah.
May do.
May well do. I last time I was there, I saw that modern boat. The camouflage boat that goes to the art gallery from the harbour, and I didn't have time to go. And it transpires that the guy who's got the art gallery there, his what's the word? Gallerist who helps getting pictures and things, is the mate of the guy that I know who's got a little thing in London, and it's all interrelated. Wow. This art world thing.
Isn't that incredible? Now, look, one final question. I know I've taken up a lot of your time. One final question. Is there anything that you're listening to now that inspires you, or what are you listening to at the moment?
I tend to listen to the same old stuff. I find if I listen to too much modern music, if I'm trying to write a song, it ends up sounding like what I just listened to.
Yeah.
So I stick to my party classics. I'm a big fan of Mose Allison and Blue Note Jazz and loads of stuff. But having said that, I went to see a band called Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes a couple of nights ago.
Right.
And they were fantastic. The guys were really good. I saw them at the Roundhouse, and that was kind of cool.
Yeah, so, fantastic.
I've always I go and see things,
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, look, it's been lovely chatting with you, Glenn. Really appreciate your time, and hope the Australian audiences love you as much as what that they did way back when.
Well, me too, because it's a long way to come and get cabbaged off. So
we don't cabbage off here. We throw beer cans apparently. So
was it stubby holders? Yeah?
Stubby holders. Just as long as they're not open and they're full, then just throw as many as you like.
That would just be a waste, wouldn't it?
It would. Yeah, absolutely. No, really appreciate it. Thank you for joining me on the show, Glenn.
All right, fella. And maybe catch you down there one way or another. One way or another.
One way or another. Cheers. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Glenn.
All right.
See you.
There you go.
Bye. Hit plus or follow to subscribe to the podcast, and head over to Facebook at The Long Way to the Top Podcast and give us a like. Keep on rocking, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Long Way to the Top.